Hello, my name is Lana, and I have a story that can happen to anyone. But it would be better if it never happened to anyone, because this is the worst thing that ever happened in my life. I've been working in the modeling business since 15. I'm very fit by nature. Plus, my mom was just obsessed with fashion and everything related to it. So, my fate was predetermined. Despite the intense competition and a bunch of behind-the-scenes intrigues, I quickly got to the top, and I started my own Instagram, as any model girl of my age does. Money, fame, a bunch of fans, and of course, a personal manager who selected especially profitable advertising projects for me. All this worked for me. Well, my mom, of course, helped me, because until I became 18, I officially had no right to enter any financial transactions. She was my representative in the negotiations, and together, we earned really big money. I took part in fashion shows of famous brands, walked the runways of Milan, Paris, and a lot of other places, plus constant participation in photo shoots and all that. My face flashed in advertisements, on the covers of magazines. I had more than 700,000 subscribers on my Instagram account. Things went just wonderful. Of course, I knew that the modeling business was a cruel one, and that in another 5 years, I would go into the print edition. So I constantly studied and dealt with all the school subjects as an external student. I really didn't want to be left behind as soon as it was all over. By the way, my timesheets were also published in magazines. Sort of like, here's a girl who has everything, but she doesn't stop there. Teenagers were very motivated by this. This lasted until I was 17, and then something happened. One mistake, one wrong decision, and my life almost ended in some terrible basement. But let's take it in order. By 17, I got significantly less suggestions. Other girls were also beautiful and had good shapes. They were already stepping on my heels. I was only saved by the fact that I already had a name that producers and photographers knew, and they worked with me. Nevertheless, an interview with a star would collect more sales than a very talented no-name model. But I got less work, and my agent decided to switch to the private orders for photo shoots. True, the price tag still remained quite high, which scared off potentially unscrupulous personalities. Well, for beginners or scammers, it was obviously too expensive to give $1,000 for 1 hour of my work. But we were mistaken. More precisely, I myself made a mistake, because I fell for a completely dumb and childish trick. A man who introduced himself as an aspiring photographer began to write to me. He said I was insanely beautiful and had been his muse for a long time. He wanted to work with me for his portfolio, but he didn't have enough money. And then he started to just communicate and did everything as if he wasn't just my fan or something, but a man who was really in love with the real me, not my stage images. And I believed. Well, you see, at 17, you have bad brains. And when you spend all your youth at work, and in a complete hell, somehow you don't care about maniac psychology or simple relationships. I didn't believe something bad would happen. Not because Liam was a special one, but because I wanted to believe. Well, he was cute, wrote some beautiful smart things, knew topics and themes I was interested in, and behaved quite confidently. And the most important thing? He didn't even try to hint at sleeping with me, and didn't send dick pics, like some other mad guys did. We'd been chatting, and then agreed on a date. I didn't tell anyone, because I consider this to be my personal thing. I didn't even tell my manager, because what business is that of his? Who cares who I'm dating? Yes, Liam talked about shooting, but it wasn't for the money. But just like that, in a dating mode. I didn't even care that the meeting was supposed to happen late at night. I preferred not to think about it. Thinking about the fact that he didn't have much money for a normal studio when the taxi turned into criminal areas of the city. Anyway, I acted like a dumb, fallen-in-love fool. Apparently, this thing was what he calculated on. Of course, there was no studio at that address. There was nothing at all except slums and a couple of abandoned houses. But the taxi had already left, and Liam sent me a message and asked me to wait a bit for him. I clarified whether the address was right, and he said yes. He strongly apologized for living in such poor conditions. I sat down on some bench and stuck on the phone, and then I felt a pain in my neck, and then there was only darkness. I came to my senses already in the basement, and judging by the sounds from the ventilation, somewhere near the sea. But there was no access to the sea in our city. It's located 1,000 kilometers from my city. But I knew that sound very well, because I stayed in the hotels on the beach many times. Judging by the basement, my hands being tied behind me, and the fact that I didn't know where I was, I realized I had been kidnapped. Friends warned me about this. My manager begged me never to do anything stupid, because such stories often happen to models. But no, I'm a smartass, and I was sure I was going on a date. And I hadn't even warned anyone. And then the hell started. The kidnappers came and said that they asked my parents for a $500,000 ransom, and if they didn't pay in 5 days, they would sell me into slavery somewhere in Arab countries. It was great money. My family certainly didn't have such an amount, and even if there was someone they could borrow it from, it certainly wouldn't happen in 5 days. All 5 days I lived in one big nightmare. The only good point was that they untied my hands, so as not to spoil the skin, as one of the abductors said. And there was no physical violence, apparently for the same reason. But in terms of a moral pressure, they should get maximum points. They mocked me, but only verbally. They told me what those who would buy me would do to me. They regretted that they couldn't have fun right now, because the goods shouldn't be spoiled. But it was still possible to survive there. It's much worse that they didn't feed me at all, didn't give me water, and forced me to sleep right in the basement on a thin mattress. They didn't even give me blankets. And it wasn't too hot in the basement, you know? The walls, for example, were covered with a hoarfrost. The hoarfrost helped me not to die of dehydration. I licked the wall, and these freaks watched and laughed at me. Hunger pains, exhaustion, constant maddening cold. Even with sleep, I really wasn't allowed to sleep. Every 3 hours, someone looked into the basement and woke me up. Anyway, a solid and impenetrable hell. But hell? No, they say hell's warm. By the end of the 5th day, I didn't care what would happen to me. I just wanted it to be over soon. That's all. I coughed terribly because I had pneumonia. My joints twisted. And going to the toilet was another torture because I got cystitis. And then it was all over. Of course, I didn't understand much. There was smoke, loud sounds, and then I realized some people were taking me somewhere away. And then I came to my senses already in the hospital, under the IVs, and finally in a warm place. And for about a week, I had no idea what had happened. And then the police came to me and told me that they had saved me. It turned out that my mom didn't even wait for the ransom letter. That same night, when she didn't find me in the room, she went to the police and demanded to find me. And then the kidnappers called, so it became clear to the police that I didn't run away and things were bad. My phone was unlocked and they read my messages. Then they somehow found out the location from what they wrote, and they found the address where I was held captive. Well, the kidnappers also helped, because from time to time they called and sent a video with my torments. And although they used secure IP addresses, this wasn't a problem for the police to hack it. Apparently, they weren't really experienced kidnappers. Then there was a trial which I couldn't personally attend. I only saw it on YouTube, how the criminals were taken away in handcuffs to jail. And what I found out later still scared me, because only 4 of them were caught in the house where they kept me. But I swear, there were 5 of them. And is there any guarantee that the 5th one won't try to attack me again? Or that he won't get a new gang? The police had no answer, just as there was no evidence, but my words that there was someone else and what he looked like. But it seemed like they were looking for him. I've only recently gotten over the consequences of the kidnapping, though frankly, both psychologically and physically, I am still far from recovery. Years of psychotherapy are waiting for me, because now I understand that I can no longer do the same things as before. I'm afraid of cameras and thoughts about filming. My manager says that now is a good chance to advance my career, but I'm not even capable of a trivial interview. I'm scared, really, I can't see my images anywhere, and this is really a diagnosis that I just have to deal with. And I just now realized how great it was that I didn't abandon school, because in the simple reading of books, lectures, the usual college routine, it got easier for me to get over it. Almost nobody knew me there, because I didn't do all the makeup. And frankly, I didn't care about my appearance at all. So everything was very cozy and calm. I don't know what will happen to me next. Will I be able to overcome my fears and return to my life? I have no answer. But I want to warn all the girls who dream of a career as a model, or just some kind of media personality. Be careful, because in reality, I'm not the only one with this problem. Every year more than 1,000 girls are captured, and only dozens of them return home. A career and a face on tabloids isn't worth risking your life. But of course, it's your choice. Write in the comments if you've heard similar stories. Be vigilant, and don't settle for dates at night in some obscure places. And be careful.